Kakalosh Boker Tov, we're going to be continuing with Daf Kaf Aleph Amud Aleph, Shavua Tov, okay? We were by where it says over here, just on the bottom where it says, Aval Adam, a human being, when he's going down to drink, he's not allowed to bring up the water because of the pasim, but rather he has to be mitapes ve'oleh, mitapes ve'yored, which means he has to go down into the well in order to drink and to come up and to drink. So says the Gemara, any is it so? The Amar of Yitzchak, Amar of Yudam Shmuel. It says of Yitzchak, the name of Yudam Shmuel. Lo hutru paseh biraot el be'mayim chayim. The paseh biraot, remember, the paseh biraot are the four corner type of things around the well. Okay, so he says that's only going to be permitted only for a be'mayim chayim, which is a be'mayan bilvad, right? And not just stam for drinking water in a pit. So he says, v'ila behema. Now, if we're talking about an animal, mali chayim mali mikunsim, what's the difference for an animal? Whether we're talking about water which is fresh water or water which was just brought in from rainwater. So says the Gemara, we need something to be fitting for a human being, which means only when it's going to be fitting for a human being, right? That he says over here, only because of the water is it considered a mechitza. So it has to be an important water. The important water is water which is fitting for a human being to drink. So it has to be a well water, like a spring water. It cannot be stam that it's a pit and it was filled up with rainwater, and now you're going to come and you're going to have it over there. Okay? Fine. Gufa. We learned in a Braita. Lo utro paseh biraot elav lebehema bilvad. The paseh biraot, according to this Braita, this Tanakama, it was only permitted for the behema. That means you could take it out of the pit for the behema, right? Aval adam, but a human being, he has to go down into it and come out. Now he says, what happens if these burot were very, very, very wide? Okay, so he says, right? Afilu al adam nami. Even if it's going to be for drinking water of a human being, it's also going to be permitted. You're not allowed to fill up the water and give it in front of your animal. But you're allowed to come and fill up the water, and then you're allowed to pour it in the trough. You remember that was the place where the animals drink. It was like a long thing, and they used to drink from there. And then the behema is going to be shota me'eleh. It's going to drink on its own. Okay? So now says the Gemara, matkif la Ravanan. Ravanan comes and he asks the following question. In Ken, if so, yeah, he says, ma ho'ilu paseh biraot. What was the entire concept of the paseh biraot? The entire purpose of these paseh biraot, remember, the paseh biraot were these four things around. You remember, that's called paseh biraot, the four things around the well. So he says, what does it help the entire concept of the paseh biraot? He said it was only in order to drink, to give the animals to drink. Okay? So says the Gemara, ma ho'ilu lemalopen. You can actually fill it up. The fact that you can fill up the jugs, the pail of water, and then do it, that in itself is already enough. Yeah? Okay. Ela, but rather he says, Ela ma ho'il rosha v'ruba shel para. What does it help? The rosh v'ruba shel para, which means what does it help? The head and the majority of the body of the para. Right? Because we said, if you remember, we said that it's only going to be permitted to put the water in front of it if it's going to drink on its own. So why do we require the head and the majority of the animal to be inside of the paseh biraot? That's the Gemara is asking. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Hachma eskina, what are we dealing with? Yeah, he says, Hachma eskina be'evus ha'omed b'reshut harabim. We're talking about the evus, which is in the reshut harabim. Okay? Gavoa asara, that it's going to be 10 tfachim, v'rachav arba'a, and 4 tfachim wide, and its head is going to be going in, meaning the top part is going to be within. You remember that was a picture that we already had. We had the paseh biraot, and then all of a sudden the trough came inside of the paseh biraot. It came inside of the area where you wanted to, where we had the permission of actually coming and doing everything. So Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar Rav, says Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba in the name of Rav, En burganin beBavel. There's no burganin in Babylonia. Remember, the burganin were the little tiny huts that were used for the shomer ha'ir, right? And these usually used to be on the outskirts of the city to protect the city. Velo paseh biraot b'chutz haaretz, and paseh biraot does not help for the diaspora, for chutz haaretz. Okay? So says the Gemara, burganin beBavel lo. It doesn't help burganin in Babel. The shchiche bidke, because sometimes you find over there they become all dirty, And therefore, even if you do have this type of a hut, it's not going to be considered like this type of a house. Okay? Paseh biraot b'chutz haaretz lo. It also doesn't help the paseh biraot in chutz haaretz. Lo shchicha metivta, because there's not a lot of yeshivot there, which means it was only for ole regalim, which means they were going to do a mitzvah. So therefore, in Eretz Yisrael, right, it was only going to be for them to coming towards, right, they're traveling. But he says over here, in other places where there's not a lot of places that they're going to learn in the yeshiva, Talmud Torah, so therefore they didn't permit any type of these paseh biraot. Aval ibcha avdinan, but we do the opposite, which means we do burgenin in other lands, and we do paseh biraot in Bavel, right? Aval ibcha avdinan, we do it, okay, except for Bavel. So it says the Gemara, ikadami, there are those that say, Amar Rav Yirmiyah, right, Bar Abba, says Rav Yirmiyah Bar Abba, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, en burgenin paseh biraot lo beBavel lo bechutz haaretz. There's not going to be the deen of burgenin and paseh biraot, not in Bavel and not in chutz haaretz, right? So according to this, it was only in Israel. And only in Eretz Yisrael where they were the Mekel to have whether it is the burgenim, which are again the shomrim of the city, or the paseh biraot. Burgenim beBavel, we're halfway down, yeah? Burgenim beBavel lo shchike bitke. Burgenim beBavel, no, why? Because there's these like water things that are going to come and they're going to destroy the burgenim. The chutz haaretz nami lo, also in chutz haaretz also the shchiche ganve, because they're thieves, which means they come and they steal the burgenim, and therefore the burgenim are not considered a house. It's like a little tiny hut. So imagine these thieves come and they just take the hut. They take it away. Paseh biraot beBavel nami lo, the shchicha maya. Since paseh biraot in Bavel they didn't permit because there's always water found. Okay? So he says because basically what happened was that in Israel, there wasn't as much water as in other places. So therefore what happened was they needed water for the people that are doing aliyah l'regel. He says, but also in chutz haaretz it's also not. Why? The lo shchicha metivta, but there's no yeshivot, so therefore they didn't permit it. So Amal Rav Chasta lemari, right? Bered Rav Huna, bered Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, says Rav Chasta to Mari, the son of Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. Amri, they said, Atitu mi Barnish beknishta de Daniel. Now they say that you come from the city of Barnish to the Bet Knesset of Daniel. So it says over here that there was like a Kabbalah that Daniel, where he prayed, they made a Bet Knesset there. And that was like a special place, the Bet Knesset of Daniel and Navi. You have Daniel.
Where?
In Bavel, Babylonia. I don't know exactly where. It doesn't say exactly where, but it says in Babylonia. It says in the footnote, there was a Masoret, Odom Makom Mesuyam beBavel, Daniel Kavala Tefilato, as is brought out in Sefer Daniel. And then afterwards, many years later, they made a Bet Knesset there. And they called it on his name because of it. So that's where he prayed. So in Babylonia, I don't know where. Okay? So says the Gemara, Tahava Tlate Parse, right, that it was 3 parsaot distance b'Shabbat on Shabbat amay samchitu. So how could they go outside, right? Which means the synagogue was 3 parsaot. Parsaot is a lot of area. You understand? Every single parsa, if you think about it, is 72 minutes of travel, because every parsa is 4 mil. Every mil is 18 minutes. So think about that. So you're talking about 72 minutes times 3. Okay, so that's a long period of time in order to get there. Huh?
3 miles.
No. Much more than 3 miles. Because remember, every single meal is just under a mile. It's just under a kilometer. It's 960 something kilometers. Meters, to be just under a kilometer. Okay, that's one meal. 1 parsa is 4 mil. So 1 parsa is around, let's say, 4 kilometers. It's a little bit less, but let's just pretend it's 4 kilometers.
So it's 3 miles.
Because you're doing times 3. 4 times 6 is 12. So 12 kilometers is 3 miles? Yeah? Okay. So then yes. Yeah? Very good. So says the Gemara, Amay samchitu, what are they being somech in order to distance themselves? A burgenin, on the burgenin. Yeah? So he says, Ha'amar avua davuch mishmed derav, says the father in the name of Rav. So he says, En burgenin beBavel, there's no burgenin in Bavel. So nafak ve'achvele anau matvata demibalan betoch shivim ama v'shirayim. So they went and they showed him that there were certain things that were swallowed up within the 70 amot from the city. So therefore, since within the 70 amot from the city, right, it was still going to be okay, so therefore there's no problem. So it comes out that it comes until the end of the destroyed cities. Look, here you have the picture. Yeah, here. So you have within each one, this is a regular city and there's a Bet Knesset. But within there, you had another two cities which were like basically destroyed. But these cities were within the 70 amot from each one. So therefore, it's going to be okay. Everyone sees it?
Here.
Everyone's there?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so each one was less than 70 amot, so therefore it was going to be okay. So you had the Bet Knesset, you had the other things which were destroyed, and then that's what you had. Okay, next. Amar Rav Chasta. Says Rav Chasta. Okay. Darish Mari Barav, Marmor. So it was Doresh Mari Barman. My dichtiv, what does it mean when it's written, Lechol tichla raiti ketz, lechava mitzvotecha meod? Yeah, this is a pasuk in Tilim Kuf Yutet. Yeah, Lechol tichla raiti ketz, lechava mitzvotecha meod. Yeah, right, Lechol tachlit. That means, sof tavar, I've seen a gvul. That means to everything I've seen a border to it. Aval mitzvotecha, which is your mitzvot, the Torah, is rechava meod. It's very, very wide. Tavar ze amaro David velo perisho. So David HaMelech said it and he didn't explain it. Amaro Iyov velo perisho. Iyov said it and he didn't explain it. Amaro Yechezkel velo pirsho. Also Yechezkel said the exact same thing and he didn't explain it. Ad sheba Zechariah ben Ido pirsho. Until came Zechariah ben Ido and he explained it. What did he say? Amaro David velo pirsho dichtiv lechot meod. Right? He said it. So it says, what is a shiur? He didn't say any shiur. He didn't say any measurement. It says Iyov and he didn't explain it. Dichtiv aruka menet mita aruka min yam. He said that the Torah is so aruka, it's so aroch, it's so long, right? And ulchava min yam, that it's longer than the land and it's wider than the sea. And he didn't explain the measurement. It says Yechezkel velo pirsho dichtiv yifrosata lefanai, that he spread it out in front of him. Which means that it was going to be written on the Perei Megillah and also behind it, and they were written the kinot and all these things and writings. Okay, but the Midot Megillah was not written. Kinim are the Puratan, right? These kinim are the kinot, basically. We call them kinot nowadays. The kinot are all the tzarot, all the sufferings of the tzaddikim in this world. And that's why it says here, kinahi vekononea. These are the concept of kinot. Right? Vahege is matan shel tzecharan shel tzaddikim latidu, is the reward of the tzaddikim in the next world. Hege is lashon shira. It's like singing. Vahi is puratan shel rishaim lativu, is the calamities, the bad things that are going to befall the wicked people in the future. So we're talking about bad things, hoy, right? That's what it's, hey. So the Gemara is going to say, Ad sheba Zechariah ben Ido pirsho, until Zechariah ben Ido came and he explained the dichtiv, and it says it's written in the pasuk, Vayomer elai mata roeh va'omer ani roeh megillah afa. He said, I see a Megillah which is flying, orka 20 ba'ama v'rochba 10 ba'ama. The amot of Kadosh Baruch Hu. So we're talking about 20 amot length and 10 amot width. I didn't understand what it means of Kadosh Baruch Hu. This is Ki'ilu the Amma of Hashem. That's what it means. Meaning, we're not talking about regular amot. We're talking about the amot of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right? How do you do that? I don't know. So says the Gemara, right? I don't know. It's not written. I don't know if you could even understand it even. That's what he's saying. Let's see. So the Gemara is going to explain what exactly does it mean. He says what? He says if you're going to open it up, it's going to become 20 by 20 amot. Even it's written, this is what? You are mekalef the Megillah in order to make it that it's going to be like two different parts. How much is it? 40 then it's going to be 40 by 20. Even it's written, so it comes out that the entire world is 1 in 3,200 of the Torah. Lo evanti mila. One more time. Megillat Torah that Zechariah saw was so great, it was 800 amot merubaot ba'amotav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because Midat HaShamayim is zeret merubat. So the entire land, the entire Shamayim is like the zeret of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is like the pinky of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it comes out that it's 3,200 times of the Shamayim. So it says there's 3,200 Rivei Amot, Merubaot. I don't know.
Define HaKadosh Baruch Hu's size of anything, pinky or whatever.
I think it's a euphemism. Meaning, I don't think it's literal. I just think it is explaining. But it doesn't actually explain. I don't know. It doesn't explain more than that. Here it just says there's derech pshat, derech remez, drash, this, that. There's hidden things. I don't know. It's not. I don't have a clarity exactly what are we referring to. But fine, let's go. The Amar of Chasta says of Chasta. That is Shmari Barman. My dichtiv. What does it mean when it's written? V'ineh shne dudaet te'enim muadim lifnei echal Hashem. Hadud echad te'enim tovot me'od ki te'eneh. He said, what does it mean that there's going to be two sidim of te'enim muadim? We're talking about figs, which are prepared in front of the echal of Hashem. Hadud echad te'enim tovot me'od. They're going to be very good ones. Kaf Aleph Amud Bet. Habakurot, which are the ones which they actually come and they become, ripened quickly. That they were so bad that you couldn't even eat them. Te'enim tovot, these are tzadikim gemurim. Te'enim arot, the bad ones, these are reshaim gemurim. The Shema Tomar, maybe you're going to say avad sifram, and now they have nothing what to do, right? They're lost hope. Uvatal sikuyam, and they have no hope in the future. What does that mean? That both kedrot give a good smell. Elu va'elu atidim shitunu reach. Even the reshaim will give a good smell. Okay, so that means that they still have what to rely on. Meaning that they will have Bezrat Hashem. They could still have tikvah, right? They could have esperanza. How do you say esperanza? They could have yearnings, right? Hope. So Darash Rava comes and he says, "My dictate. What do you mean in pasuk? These are bachurei Yisrael shelotam tamel chet. These are bachurei Yisrael that they never tasted the taste of chet, right? Any types of sins. Ve'al petachenu kol megadim. These are benot Yisrael shemagido pitchen lebalein. These are the daughters of Yisrael that they tell their entrances to their husbands, which means that they tell their husbands when they become nida. Lashon acher, another explanation, sheogdot pitchen lebalein, that they tie them, they close them and they only leave it for their husbands, and they don't have relations with anybody else. So either explanation, right? But that's what they're doing. That's val petachenu kol megadim. So we're talking about on the entrances, all the megadim. We're talking about the women. Okay. Because the simple explanation is that we have good fruits by the doors. Okay? Chadashim gam yeshanim dodit safanti lach. Whether it's new ones or old ones, my beloved one is going to hide it. Says Knesset Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we made a lot of decrees upon us, even more than what you decreed upon us. And we actually fulfilled them. And that's explanation. Divrei Sofrim are chadashim, are new things. Divrei Torah are yeshanim, are old things. Okay? So it says, so Rav Chasta once came and he told one of the rabbis, that he was being mesader the agadot in front of him. Did you ever hear chadashim gam yeshanim? What does it mean, the pasuk, chadashim gam yeshanim ma'u? Amalei, he said, elu mitzot kalot ve-mitzot chamurot. These are the strict mitzot and the easy mitzot. So Amalei, he told them, Torah pe'amim pa'amim nitna. Says what, the Torah was given twice? You have the new ones and the old ones. Ella, but rather, one of them is divrei Torah, one of them is divrei sofrim. So the rabbis, all the things that the rabbis came and they did, what is it? It is midivrei sofrim. So Darash Rava. Rava comes and he expounded. Dichtiv, and it's written in a pasuk. Yoter mehema beni, hizaher asot sfarim arbeh. So more than this, my son, right, do a lot of sefarim. Beni hizaher b'divrei sofrim. Be careful b'divrei sofrim. Yoter midivrei Torah. Be careful with the words of the rabbis, even more than the words of Torah. Shedivrei Torah yesh b'en aseh v'lo ta'aseh, because the Torah, you have a positive and a command, a negative. Divrei sofrim, but divrei sofrim, kol ha'over divrei sofrim chayav mitah. Meaning, by the divrei Torah, sometimes it's a positive commandment, sometimes it's a negative commandment. It's not always a death penalty. Sometimes you didn't do a positive commandment. So, okay, fine, you didn't do a positive commandment. Sometimes you did a negative one, and there's no death penalty. Said, but if you go against the words of the rabbi, it's always chayav mitah. Shema tomar im yesh b'hem mamash mipnei ma lo nichtavu. So the question is, so one second, so if it's so important, so why is it written in the Torah? Amakra, it says in the pasuk, asot sfarim arbe en ketz. There's no sof to the sfarim, which they needed in order to do the Torah Shebe'al Peh. Bela'ag arbe yagad basar. Amar papa bered ravacha bar adam mishmed ravacha barula. Melamed shekulam ali al divrei chachamim. Anybody that's going to come and start laughing at the words of the rabbis, nidom betzoar rotachat. They will be judged in burning excrement. Okay? So he says over here, bigiyat basar, which is like the tzoah. So mamash, in burning excrement. Right? I don't want to imagine the smell or the odor of that. Fine. Matkif la Rava. So Rava comes and he asks the following question. Miktiv, it's written lahag. It's not written la'ag imin ayin, which means to laugh. It's written lahag with a hey. Ela kol ha'ogeh bahen toem tam basar. Anytime a person will come and will learn Torah, he says toem tam basar. Every single time a person does chazarah, he finds ta'am in it. Which means it's incredible, because if you think about it, many times, if you've done something once, you're always going to say, did that, done that, like, next. You understand? Like, that's it. You've been there, done that. I think that's the expression. No, been there, done that. Which means it becomes tired in the eyes of people. Torah is the exact opposite. You can learn it again and again and again and again, and every single time there's something new. So since there's something new every single time, it's always beautiful to you. So you're tasting meat, you're tasting something there. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Masechet Rabbi Kiva sheyach chavush bet asurin. There was a story of Rabbi Kiva that he was in jail. This was the story of Rabbi Kiva also in the end of Berachot, if you remember, when he was teaching Torah in public, so then they put him in jail. So what happened? It says over here, Vayar Rabbi Yoshua Agarsi mishartor. Rabbi Yoshua Agarsi was there. He used to give him exactly water. Yom echad, one day, Metzao Shomeh bet asurin, right? He found Rabbi Yoshua Agarsi. Rabbi Kiva Amalo, he said, today you have more water. He says, what? Maybe you need to dig something outside. So basically what happened is that he went and he told him, why are you giving me more water? What? He needs water to start digging out. So he poured out half the water. So when he came to Rabbi Kiva, Amalo, he said, Yoshua, he says, well, you don't know that I'm old? And I'm being supported by you. He told him the entire thing. Amallo, he says, tell me mayim, give me water, that I'm going to wash my hands for netilat yadayim. Amallo, he told him, he says, you don't even have enough in order to drink. You're going to start doing netilat yadayim. Amallo, he said, right? He's going to be chayav mita if he's going to eat without netilat yadayim for the Suda. Mutav she'amut mitat atzmi. It's better that he dies on his own, right? Than he's on thirst. And he does not want to go against the rabbis to eat bread without netilat yadayim. Amru, they said lo tam klum ad shevilo mayim v'natal yadav. He didn't taste anything until he brought him netilat yadayim. Kesheshemu chachamim davar amru. So when the rabbis heard this, they said on Rabbi Akiva, ma beziknuto kach. If this is what he used to do when he was older, yalduto alecha kama v'chama. Imagine when he was younger what he used to do. Because in order not to go against the words of the rabbis. So, just like in the Bet Asurim Kach, imagine if he wasn't in the Bet Asurim, imagine. If he was in jail, this is the way that he acted. Imagine when he wasn't in jail. So, Amr of Yehuda Meshmuel says Yehuda Meshmuel, when Shlomo Melech instituted Eruvin and Netilat Yadayim, Yatza Bat Kol v'amra, Bat Kol came out and said, Beni, my son, Im Chacham libecha, if your heart is so smart, Yismach libi gamani. So my heart is also going to be very happy. It says, Chacham beni v'samach libi v'ashiv v'chorfi davar. Right? The Chacham, my son, right? He says, I'm going to be happy when you're going to answer the people that go against me. That Rashava Rava says, what does it mean in the Pasuk? Lechad udin etzah sadeh l'nei kabekavni ashki imalek l'bini imparecha kevim v'dach zemad hene tzvarim sham etene doda elach. What does that mean? So he says like this, Lechad udin etzah sadeh, yeah? Lechad udin etzah sadeh means, I'm not going to say l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribbono shel olam, al tedineni ki yosheveh kerakim. He says, do not judge me like the people of the big cities. That they come, right? That's what Knesset Yisrael is saying. Let's go out to the fields. Don't be in the city where they have gezel, they have stealing, they have arayot, they have immorality, there's shuat shav, shuat sheker, there's lying and right saying falsehoods. Let's go outside in the sadeh. Right? Let's go outside and see the Talmidei Chachamim that they're learning Torah b'toch hadachak. Nalina bekafarim. What does it mean? Al tikre bekafarim ela bakofrim. What is the kofrim? Bo varecha. Yeah, otam sheishpat alem tova ve'en kafru becha. Look and see the people that they came and they went against Bnei Esav, right? That they went and they went against you, right? Sheishpat alem, you gave them good things and then they were kofer becha. Ashkim ala keramim, these are batei knesiyot batei midrashot, right? That these are like the vineyards that they give off beautiful wine. Yeah. Nir'eh im parecha gefen elu ba'alei mikra. These are the people that learn Torah. Itachas amadar ba'alei mishnah. People learn mishnayot. And then so limunim is ba'alei gemara. Sham etenet odai lach. There I'm going to come. Erecha kevodi vegodni. I'm going to show you the greatness. Shevach banai uvnotai. The praises of my sons and daughters. Abba Rav Amununa says, he says he's going to speak about 3,000 different mishalim. And it was 5,000. So he said on every single word of Torah, he said 3,000 mishalim. He said on every single thing of the Rabbanan, he gave 5,000. No, sorry, 1,500, no?
1,500.
1,500? Yeah, 1,500. How does it work? Chamisha ve'elef? So it's 1,005. He didn't say 500 ve'elef. Chamisha ve'elef.
So the 1,005.
1,005. Very good. Okay, so that's what I thought. 1,005. Okay, so 1,005 tamim. Tarashav Rava expounded. My dictee, what does it mean in Pasuk? V'yoter shaya kohelet chacham od lamad ladat et ha'am. What does it mean that more than Kohelet came, there was a Chacham? He wanted to know the people. That's the Agmara. The Simanet Ta'amim. What is this? I don't know. Here it says Diktur Sufrim. What does it translate there? What is the Agmara? It doesn't say.
The Admira.
Here it just says he taught them al pi simanim. He taught them like with mnemonics and like signs to remember the learning. He explained the things which were very similar, like with mishalim. I don't know, maybe like
No.
The Agmera means that he taught him like that. They taught him. Okay, fine. Right? It was like a basket that had no handles. Until Shlomo Melech came and he made them handles. Basically, he made Eiruvin and everything as chizuk for Shmirat Shabbat and Netilat Yadayim for Shmira of Kodshim. And then he also prohibited Shniyot Arayot. For Arayot, he did like a whole bunch of different things in order to uphold everything that we have. So you could be Doresh on every single Kotz. On every single one of the kotzim, the little things that come out of the letters. Right? So many halachot. How are you going to find them? With somebody, he comes early to the Bet Midrash and he stays late in the Bet Midrash. Okay, so Bezrat Hashem, we continue tomorrow.
Chazak u'baruch.